And we have exactly the right first speaker to talk about this, because it's a person that understands exactly how the attention economy is completely reshaping luxury, understands how evolving experiences are created across all touch points, not just across a few. And he is a veteran of the industry, the marketing advisor of the LVMH group, and here to give you a deeper insight into retailtainment and how luxury retail experiences are evolving in the attention economy. So please welcome with me, Blake Harrop. Welcome, Blake. Great to have you.
All right, thank you. So you might all be wondering, given that this is a technology event where some of the world's next most famous companies are being created, why have they invited somebody from a company that is 170 years old? I hope that I can answer that question during my presentation today. So I'm here to talk about Retailtainment is what you'll see in your event guide, but it's really about spaces, places, and dreams, and why filling that with meaning is important for any successful business in the world today. So I'm going to talk about icons. I'm going to use this word a lot, and because I'm going to use this word a lot, I'm going to explain a little bit what I mean first. So let's start with the definition. The word icon comes from ancient Greece, ancient Greek, meaning likeness or image. But the modern meaning of this word is an image that represents something or someone. So for example, when you see a flag, the colors and symbols and lines say that this image represents our country. This one image represents our languages, our cultures, our borders. Brands use logos, and the logos represent the entirety of the products and services that the company provides. And in the world of art, when an artist makes a creation, that creation is something that represents something that we can all find meaning in. Whether that meaning is beauty or emotion, the art can be described as iconic because it represents something other than the two-dimensional image that you see on the canvas. So all of those things, the flags, the logos, the art, can be described as iconic. And being iconic is therefore a shortcut to meaning. So for the formative part of my career, I worked in advertising. I worked in advertising for 16 years, and most of that time I spent working at the company Wieden & Kennedy. So Wieden & Kennedy is the advertising agency that made the tagline, "Just Do It," for Nike. So during that time, I got to work a lot with iconic brands, some of those famous companies in the world, and I spent my time thinking about what is it that makes these brands iconic, how can they remain iconic, what is it that they have to do to remain at the very top of their respective industries. And since that time, I left advertising and I've joined the luxury industry. So I now work for LVMH. And for most of the time I've been at LVMH, I've been working at the brand Louis Vuitton. It's kind of fun because when I work at Wieden & Kennedy, I had to explain what company it was. When I say that I work at Louis Vuitton, I don't have to explain it to anyone. So one thing I've learned is that the approach to creating icons is exactly opposite in the world of advertising and the world of luxury. And that actually provides us an opportunity to learn what are those differences and how can they be useful to us. So most mass market brands, they borrow from the things that are already iconic. So that could mean, and I don't know if people are familiar with the Coldplay concert a couple of months ago and the couple that kissed on the screen, the Jumbotron, caused all sorts of headlines. Lots of brands participate in that moment. That moment was kind of iconic. It meant something to a lot of people. So many brands jumped in and inserted themselves into this conversation. Even washing powder to airlines, lots of people jumped in. But not just iconic moments, but also iconic arts. So whether it's travel photography to sell flights, or fashion photography to sell apparel, or the cinematic arts to sell cars, there's lots of ways in which the world of mass market brands will borrow from things that are already iconic and use this to market itself to new customers. So meanwhile, in the high end of the fashion industry, there's never any intention to borrow from what is iconic. In fact, in fashion, the goal is to create something that is iconic. Some examples of this would be post-war, Christian Dior creating a collection that was a remarkable departure from wartime trends and clothing rules. So he made a feminine silhouette. He used very expensive fabrics. He used hours and hours of designer's time in the atelier, and he created something that was described as the new look. So this look is an icon. It's a reference, so other people will remark on it and talk about it. Or you could have an iconic collection. So again, from Dior, Maria Grazia's last cruise collection was described by many people as iconic because it brings together the world of costume and fashion in something that is singular and feels like a fresh expression of her vision. So you can be iconic as a fashion collection. Or you could create an iconic moment. So Virgil Abloh joining Louis Vuitton as the menswear creative director and having his first show in 2018 in the Jardin des Tuileries is an iconic moment in the fashion industry. It inspired a great number of people. It was covered by a great number of the media. And this moment was iconic within fashion and within culture. So at the moment that these icons are created, there's never a feeling of it being something that is a reference to the past. It's always something that feels new. And importantly, although it's a new image that's being created or a new moment or a new something, it's a moment where people can see themselves reflected in that creation. So because people feel the relevance, because they feel themselves represented or expressed in this thing, it then becomes a moment that's iconic and will transcend time. So there's a lot of value in creating something that is iconic. And if you don't believe me, you can ask the guy who's now chairman of Pop Mart, which sells Labubu dolls, and he's now estimated to be worth $21 billion and is the 10th richest man in China. And if you don't know Labubu dolls, Google them afterwards and they'll follow you around the internet forever. So in fashion, there's a word when an icon is created and then replicated by other brands and other businesses, and that word is trend. So to create a trend is to create an icon and then for that icon to be digested somehow by other business. So this is a snapshot of some trends that have come out into the world in the last couple of years. One of these trends is completely made up. Does anyone have a guess which one it is? It's matcha maximalism. I just made that up, knowing that probably no one will figure it out because there's just so many trends. And that's kind of the point, because the model that helped the fashion industry to grow has now been atomized. It's been broken out into many, many small pieces by social media. Global fast fashion and reseller sites have meant that the period of time it takes for you to see something on a runway and then be able to have it in your wardrobe has been reduced. So, and people are paying attention to trends at the speed of attention. So the whole world is moving much, much faster. And if I'd have tried to create that same slide I just showed you 10 years ago, we would have had maybe 2, 3 words on the page. So the point is that the life cycle is shorter than ever before, and the trends are more numerous than ever before. Now, in principle, this isn't something that the high end of the fashion industry worries about. Again, because fashion isn't looking to follow trends, fashion is looking to create them. However, this does have an impact on the economics of icon creation. So if you are a creator of something iconic, or even in order to create something iconic, the process by which you do that has had to fundamentally change. And this is the part where I hope I can share some points that are perhaps relevant to those of you that are responsible for creating new brands and new businesses. Because if your iconic design will be seen, metabolized, replicated, and monetized faster than ever before, then as a creator, you have to know in advance the the spaces and places where your creation will live, so that you can think about those spaces and places at the moment that you're creating your idea. So let me share some examples of how Louis Vuitton does that today. So a fashion show is essentially a showing of a new fashion collection. It happens usually twice a year for men's, twice a year for women's, and there's a new collection presented to the world. In the past, media would cover this, clients would purchase this, and that was that. This is a show that we put on at the Louvre Museum in Paris in January. The collection itself was a collaboration between our menswear director, Pharrell Williams, and his longtime friend, Nigo. And the collection is inspired by the decades-long friendship that they have. It's inspired by Japan, and it's inspired by streetwear. And there's a richness to the design collection that is quite difficult to convey. So what you see is the models wearing the new clothes, walking in a circle in the space that we erected in the Louvre. They're walking past these cabinets that you can see. Inside the cabinets, we held pieces from each of Nigo and Pharrell's personal collections that had inspired the show that you were seeing. And at the end of the show, we used some glass technology that took the glass from being an opaque surface to a transparent surface, and then we could reveal the pieces that were in the archive. One of the archives also included pieces that people could purchase, and we gave out museum guides to everyone in the audience so that they could go and learn about the archive, they could photograph the archive, they could talk on social media about the archive. And by doing this, we were able to make sure that not just Louis Vuitton was talking about this collection, but that there was a large audience that were also helping to tell our story. So we weren't the only ones that had access to the information, and we empowered people to tell the story of the creative vision. Another example is also from the beginning of this year, when Louis Vuitton worked with the Japanese artist Takashi Murakami to relaunch a 20-year collaboration that we've had with the artist and launch some new products. So in order to launch these products, we created spaces around the world, both inside the Louis Vuitton stores, but also in pop-up locations where people could photograph the artwork of the artist. They could buy limited edition coffees and pastries and watch movies that were made by the artist 20 years ago at the point of the original collection. And all of the video images you see on the page right now, none of them are created by Louis Vuitton. All of these images are, again, created by people out there in the world because we've filled the spaces with our iconic intention. And then finally, Louis Vuitton is many things. It's also a retail business, so we have store locations around the world. And when we open a store location, this is an important moment for the brand, but we've also tried to make it an important moment in culture. So taking the spaces that we have and then creating our own art to display on the outside of the building is how we can create something that feels like an iconic moment and invites people to take images and find out something about the brand, which has its origins in travel. So whether it's the stack of trunks on 57th Street in New York, which were the first product ever made by the Maison, or the ship that we created in Shanghai, evoking an idea about travel and luxury and sea travel from over 100 years ago. So thank you. Yeah. So yeah, this ship is pretty remarkable. It launched just a couple of months ago. And again, perhaps this is already very impressive to see something of the scale of this ship. But in fact, I'm going to virtually take you inside it right now, because it's not just a glamorous facade, but also when you enter inside, we have documentation on the history of the company and its founders. We have architectural installations. We have pieces and products that come from the archives of the company. We showcase some vintage pieces, the publications and coffee table books. We have a scent library so people can see the perfumes and experience those. We show how the products are tested. We show the relationship the Maison has had with sport over the years. We show the fashion shows, and then you go through all of this into the store. So then you can actually see the products that are being made by Louis Vuitton today and these are available for purchase. You can also go into a coffee shop or a cafe where you can buy a gift or a coffee, and then you can go out onto the deck where you can take photographs with your friends. So again, this is not just an iconic facade, but it's so many different touch points that the Maison creates in order to allow for people to find the thing that's inspiring and relevant to them. So these approaches, whether it's the show or the product launch or the facades, recognize that the spaces and places where culture is experienced today are not solely under the control of the brands. They're under the control of people in the world. And in order to recognize that, and in order to create something outstanding, you have to recognize this multifaceted world and create for it. So that's why the visual language of icons is going to change. And it's going to need everyone's creativity in order to adapt to that reality. And I mentioned something about the heritage of Louis Vuitton earlier. The L and the V is one of the oldest logos in the world. It was created by Georges Vuitton, the son of Louis, and it was created in part as a tribute to his father and partly to avoid the products that Louis Vuitton was making being counterfeited. So it's a logo that has lasted well over 100 years. In many ways, you could say that it's iconic. But again, if we lived in a world where a simple, singular icon was enough, then we would lean on this logo and use it single-mindedly all the time. But in fact, an icon isn't a logo, it's everything. And you saw a video a moment ago of this stack of trunks in New York City. If you look very carefully, you'll see that on these trunks, the iconic LV logo is not present at all. This is because in order for us to create this facade in New York, we had to work with the city of New York and agree that we wouldn't use it as a representation of our logo, but we would use it as a representation of our creativity. And in the past, perhaps removing your logo from anything would be a disaster for a brand. But today, in the world in which we live, because everything is multifaceted, because you have to work so hard to put your creative intention in every single place you can, for us, it was not a problem. So I encourage you to think about this multifaceted world. I encourage you to create with it in mind, with your audience, and I hope that the icons of tomorrow, some of them will be created by all of you. Thank you very much.